Well, good day. So, to honor Remembrance Day and Veterans Day, I figure we should talk about that time Captain America teamed up with Wolverine in World War II. And, well, I guess technically the first cartoon appearance of the Howling Commandos. So, alright, let's go. Alright. So, we start off in a veterans graveyard in Paris, France, where Wolverine is angry, as well per usual, but this time he's yelling at the grave of Andre Cocteau. But why is Wolverine so frickin' mad? And on top of that, who is this Andre Cocteau guy? Well, to answer these questions, we need to tiptoe through the time tulips to France in 1944. And, well, that was a pretty horrible time and place to be in, with the occupation and all. But even there, we find Logan. At this point in his history, he was an agent with the Office of Strategic Services, doing some intelligence sleuthing for the US Army. Even though he's Canadian though, right? Huh. Well, anywho, he meets up with his friend, Justine, who is using her shop as a US cover office, I guess, where both of them meet US Captain Happy Sawyer. Captain Sawyer gives Logan instructions to go to Chateau de Mort, which is perched dangerously high on top of some mountains, and Logan is expected to extract Professor Andre Cocteau, or to eliminate him, capiche? To prevent the guy from yapping to the enemy. Loose lips sink ships. So that seems kind of cut and dry, but then we find out that Justine is Professor Cocteau's daughter, and she just heard how her father's potentially going to be killed by her friend. Not awkward at all, but it is war. So seeing as Logan is on a super important intelligence mission, one which is of the utmost importance, and no time for dilly-dallying, well, Logan decides to dilly-dally and beat up some random German soldiers. Well, to be fair, they were kind of being jerks to some young French kids, so, you gotta stand up for the little guy. But as Logan is about to get a quick little hello from a machine gun, a star and striped shield flies through the air and stops the lead bullet onslaught. Wait a second. Star and striped shield? Could it be? It is! Captain America! Mr. Stars and Stripes himself! So he was actually assigned to help Logan on this mission. So after they warm up their fists on the faces of these gaggle of German soldiers, they head out towards Chateau de Mort. Which, like this mountaintop chateau looks a little kind of impossible to get to. What with the 90-degree cliff, surrounding the place. If your superpower was that of a mountain goat, you'd have no problem whatsoever, right? But with these mere superpowered mortals, not so much luck. But luckily, Logan was supplied with these set of 3-clawed climbing claws, I guess you call them, which gets strapped on each hand and helps you easily climb on top of a mountain. Which, these claws look fantastic on Logan, but it does look a little weird on Captain America. Effective and awesome, but still, it just doesn't feel right. Regardless, they get into the building where there's only 2 soldiers guarding the entire place. Intelligence reconnaissance led us to believe that this place was like the most fortified place ever, with intense security. Unless these 2 guys are so intense they make up for an army of like 300, but I guess not, because they get beaten up pretty quick as the allied duo get to Professor Cocteau and get him out of there. But, there's kind of a slight snag. Professor Cocteau, he doesn't want to go. He needs to stay and do his work. Man, you're working for the bad guys right now. What the hell? Follow the guy with the stripes and get the hell out of there. But as he's trying to explain his situation, Logan runs out of patience, gives Professor Cocteau a Vulcan neck pinch. I don't know where he learned how to do that, but holy crap. And now that the good doc is out cold, the 3 of them leave. But unfortunately, not too far, because I guess the rest of the guards started their shift at that point. And, well, I guess also because the alarms were blaring, so all hands on deck, and just like that, Logan and Captain America are captured. Which is horrible timing, because this is the point that the frickin' Red Skull pops in to say, Guten Tag. Is that how you say hello in German? Actually, I'm not too sure. And he also thanks Professor Cocteau for setting off the alarms. Professor Cocteau was the one who set the alarms? Sacre bleu! But why would he do this? Well, that's not the most important thing on Cap and Logan's mind right now because they're completely tied up in a tortured dungeon with the Red Skull, so things kinda suck big time for them right now. But luckily, Red Skull is an idiot, and he left the two prisoners alone in the dungeon with their weapons nearby. So Logan does some physics-defying gymnastics, to get Captain Shield, fling it off the wall, break him out of his bonds, so he can help Cap escape. Which they do! As they try to recapture Cocteau, they need to take on a literal army. An army which knows how to shoot at a target, but, does not know how to shoot at anything else other than a shield, which, lucky. And at this point, Captain America is a little concerned with Logan that he may be enjoying being in the fray a little too much. But it's all good because now we have the title match of the episode, Captain America versus the Red Skull. Fight! And, well, damn it, it's actually not that impressive of a fight. Captain America is definitely the superior fighter, and he's just toying with the Red Skull. It should be a pretty easy victory, but the Red Skull activates Professor Cocteau's invention, the Sleeper Robot. But this frickin' robot is huge! And it has machine guns for hands! So crap! The boys are screwed! Well, for a little bit anyway, Once they get their bearings and kind of figure out this robot a little bit, they actually spend a little time in blowing this thing up real good And the chateau with it! So as Red Skull and Cocteau are taken off in their skull plane, I guess you can call it, Cap and Logan failed to stop them, and well, we will see them again at some other point, allegedly. So for the Chateau de Mort, it turns out that Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos were the ones who blew the place up. Captain America sees this as a victory, destroying the lab, all the work with the robots, and, stopping this horrible weapons program. You take any win that you can get, right? But Logan sees this mission as a failure. He was supposed to retrieve or destroy Cocteau, but unfortunately, neither has happened. Back in the present day, Logan is still cursing Cocteau's grave, for him being a backstabber, joining the likes of the Red Skull and all of his jerks. But Cocteau's daughter, Justine, shows up to fill Logan in on the rest of the story. Turns out Professor Cocteau was a double agent. He agreed to work with the Axis to build all this technology, but his real mission was to sabotage or slow down the progress of anything that the Germans were making during the war. Such as, stopping the German atomic bomb from being built and stuff like that. So really, in the end, Professor Cocteau was quite the hero. So much so that Wolverine, had a complete change of heart on Cocteau, and he decided to carve the word hero on Cocteau's tombstone, and then went with Justine to a bistro to get some drinks and reminisce. But yes indeed, with that is the end of this heroic tale. Hey man, that was a freaking awesome episode! It's always awesome to see Captain America make an appearance in some other TV series, but to see him fighting, in his wheelhouse, right? During the war, it just has a different kind of tone and feel to it, which is, oh man, just so awesome to see! Especially for the fact that he's teamed up with Wolverine and, also the Howling Commandos with Sergeant Fury. It is indeed the chef's kiss. Mwah. The only way that it could actually get better is if he teamed up with all of his buddies that he did during his actual comic book run in the 1940s, The Invaders, with the Submariner and the original Human Torch and all those other characters. But still, with Captain America fighting with all the modern Marvel characters who would have fought in World War II, still damn awesome! Just one small detail, though, that is, a little different. Why does Captain America have red trunks and a yellow belt in this episode? The dude's always worn blue trunks! The only time, I did kind of see him wearing red trunks would have been with Amalgam Comics. You know, when they amalgamated Superman and Captain America to create Super Soldier? That one? For that, he wore the red trunks and the yellow belt because that was, you know, basically Superman's uniform there, so it made sense then. But for this episode, I don't get it! Also, with Captain America using Wolverine's claws there, you know, technically, right? Like, man, you know, like, what can't this guy do, right? He's got his shield, you know, which is an awesome weapon and a defense, you know, kind of a thing in its own right. He can use Thor's hammer, you know, with the greatest of ease. And now he's got Wolverine's claws. Like, holy crap! What's next? An Iron Man suit? Oh, wait, what? They did that? Of course, you know, why not? The Iron Captain suit, not to be confused with the Iron Patriot suit. Totally different. And yeah, man, Wolverine, right? Schnickety schnick. It is kind of interesting though, you know, like Wolverine, you know, like during the Weapon X program, lost basically all of his memories, you know, like he remembers very little and even then just kind of like bits and pieces of things, right? But then in this episode, he remembers everything about the war, you know, in absolute specific detail. That don't kind of make a whole lot of sense. He's been through a lot of other battles and a lot of other wars, and he doesn't remember being in those. But, you know, I guess if he doesn't remember it, you know, it wouldn't make for a good episode. And as I say, this episode, frickin' awesome. So if you haven't checked it out yet, you know, I definitely suggest you do. But with that, we do have some more behind the scenes kind of things with Captain America and Logan and World War II and all that other kind of stuff going on over here.
So yeah, hey, Wolverine and Captain America together again for the first time. So, like, it is pretty cool to see them together fighting during the big one. But, you know, this isn't a story that would have happened, you know, in real time during the time of World War II. Seeing as Captain America, you know, debuted in 1941 during the war, and Wolverine debuted in 1974. So it kind of would have been hard to do, but after the writers with Wolverine figured out that, you know, he was over 200 years old, and it's like, yeah, of course, you know, he would have been in World War II. The guy's a fighter and a scrapper after all, so they retroactively added him in some World War II stories. For example, there was a World War II flashback story with Wolverine and Captain America that happened in Uncanny X-Men number 268 in 1990, and this episode, I guess, technically is a very loose adaptation of that story. Cap and Wolvie were trying to save a child named Natasha Romanoff in World War II. You know, if you've ever heard of Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. Also, during a company crossover with Marvel Comics and Image Comics, Wolverine teamed up with Zealot in X-Men Wildcats: The Golden Age in 1997, which honestly I thought was pretty awesome. Wolverine and Zealot fight against the Germans and the Damonites, where Wolverine did use a claw weapon, seeing as he didn't have claws yet. But, you know, in reality, if you wanted to have a Captain America team up with a Canadian superhero during the 1940s, you know, in real time, well then, our maple-leafed hero would have been none other than Johnny Canuck. Johnny first appeared in 1941, and you know, well, he wasn't a super-powered hero. He was just a regular guy in the Air Force, you know. He was a pilot and a daredevil, but was very effective at infiltrating Axis strongholds and, you know, punching enemies in the face real good. And I guess for funsies, you know, Johnny Canuck should not be confused with that other legendary Canadian superhero from the 1970s, Captain Canuck, and his modern reboot in, you know, 2014. And, well, I guess Captain Canuck should not be confused with Guardian from Alpha Flight. But speaking of Canadians, you know, Wolverine. So in this episode, he was working with the American Intelligence, the OSS, aka the Office of Strategic Services, which eventually became the CIA. But, you know, seeing as the dude's Canadian, you figure he would have been working with OSS's Canadian counterparts that operated during World War II, which would have been the Canadian Intelligence Corps. But, you know, I guess this is an American cartoon, and
and they probably didn't know about the CIC. And also with Wolverine, with him having no retractable claws in this episode, no adamantium ones, no bone ones, it's all kind of weird, right? Well, I guess let me kind of go back a little bit with his claws and kind of, get the history of it. So when Wolverine was created, it was intended, but never really officially stated in the comic books that his claws were not a part of his body. They were just a part of his specially designed gloves. So if anybody wore these gloves, they would have these claws coming out of them. And this is why he always wore gloves in the earlier appearances. Even if he was in civilian gear, he would have civilian kind of gloves over top of his regular claw gloves, But all of that was quickly changed, and his official story was that he did have these adamantium claws built into his forearms, basically, during the Weapon X program. And that he had no claws whatsoever before that time. And so for Wolverine using those climbing claws, in this episode, it makes total sense. But, because, why not? Wolverine's claws were retconned again. So Magneto removed all of the adamantium from Wolverine's body in X-Men Volume 2, number 25 in 1991. And well, no adamantium, that means no claws for Wolverine. But, claws are pretty cool with Wolverine, so they gave him some new claws. Some bone claws, which I guess are kind of neat. And apparently he had these bone claws the whole time. You just didn't know because they were covered in adamantium. So, man, that kind of screwed things up, especially for this episode. Considering this episode was released in 1997, so they would have known about Wolverine's bone claws for 6 years already, right? So it's kind of funny that they went with the original route, although I do appreciate it. So also in this episode, Justine talked about how her father helped sabotage German technological advances in weaponry, and she cited 2 specific projects: the delay in the V2 rockets and the failure of the German atomic bomb. So those were indeed real-life projects being worked on in Germany. Those V2 rockets, they were suborbital missiles that could be launched at targets from great distances, They were full of a bunch of problems, and they were becoming slowly near completion, during the end of the war. But thankfully, Germany surrendered before they were ever actually implemented. And for their atomic bombs, they were not successful at all with them. They really couldn't figure it out, so, it's terrific news indeed also that they did not have that technology. So yeah, I guess, thanks Professor Cocteau. Also in this cartoon is the first appearances of some of the classic characters who first appeared in Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos number 1 in 1963. One of the characters would have been Captain Sam Sawyer, also known as Happy Sawyer because he has a very serious demeanor. Like calling a bald guy curly, I guess. And we also had a really quick cameo appearance by Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos. So this is the first time in cartoon form that we've seen the Commandos being Percy Pinkerton, Rebel Ralston, Izzy Cohen, and Dino Manelli. This episode also featured Nick Fury with a beard and Dum Dum Diggins, but they've appeared in cartoons before, so not quite their first appearance. Although I do believe this is the first time we've seen the entire Howling Commandos unit in cartoon form during World War II, so that's pretty cool. And as I say, it was cool seeing them together with Captain America and Wolverine, so good times indeed. But yes indeed, that's pretty much the basic skinny on this episode, so yeah. With this, that, those, and the other things, I guess that's that. Also, if you're interested, I created my own comic book channel, 215 Comics. And currently, I have created my own cartoon series, The Adventures of the Density. And recently started a radio series featuring my newest character, Elastomorph, with more titles to come. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link up top here to that channel, and some links at the end of the video. Yeah!